There should be at least one character death in the White Lotus Season 3 finale, but some characters' fates will certainly end up better than others. Since the beginning of the White Lotus Season 3, some characters have been on a fast track towards disaster, most notably Timothy Ratliff, Jason Isaacs, whose family faces significant financial troubles after he was exposed for helping set up a money laundering scheme. Other characters, such as Rick Hatchett, Walton Goggins, also went through Season 3 carrying an element of danger, which may come back to bite him after his long-awaited confrontation with Jim. Wildcard characters such as Sam Rockwell's Frank and Tanya's ex-husband Greg Gary Hunt also pose a threat in the White Lotus Season 3 finale, especially after Frank broke his sobriety in Episode 7, making him increasingly unpredictable. The White Lotus Season 3 finale teaser trailer also hints that the poisonous seeds inside the fallen fruit of the pong pong trees featured throughout the Thai resort could come into play as Timothy holds one in his hand. This could connect to a White Lotus Season 3 Saxon death theory involving his signature smoothies. 10. Fabian, Pornchai, Amrita and Pam. As far as some of the White Lotus supporting characters go, Fabian is the most involved in the main storyline and the closest to the hotel owners, Sritala and Jim Hollinger. An eager musician and performer, he doesn't have many character interactions other than the trio of Jacqueline, Katie, and Laurie and, briefly, Belinda, who tried to tell him about Gary's real identity. Pornchai and Belinda had a one-night stand, but Belinda is not interested in anything serious. Pam tells Timothy and the Ratliffs not to eat the pong-pong seeds while Amrita flees from bullets in the opening flash-forward sequence in Episode 1. It would be shocking if any of these characters died unless Fabian tried to protect Sritala or Pornchai tried to save Belinda, potentially from assassins hired by Greg. 9. Sritala and Jim. Sritala and Jim will almost certainly want to go after Rick and Frank after their scheme at their home in Bangkok. Rick failed to pull the trigger on Jim when he had the chance. In fact, he didn't even hurt him much other than push him over in his chair. Still, as co-owners of the White Lotus Thai Resort, Jim and Sritala will probably want to follow up on Rick and Frank, whether that means hiring assassins or contacting authorities. Jim may hang back in Bangkok due to health issues, but Sritala should return to the resort, leaving Rick a small window to grab Chelsea and run. 8. Valentin, Alexei and Vlad. Now that both Gaitok and Laurie suspect that Valentin and his friends, Alexei and Vlad, robbed the jewelry store at the resort, Valentin is sure to be exposed one way or another. Gaitok may turn out to be too meek to confess his suspicions of Valentin, Alexei, and Vlad, but Laurie, who may want to get back at Valentin for sleeping with Jacqueline, could confront him head-on or at least tell Jacqueline and Laurie about it. Ultimately, Valentin and his friends look to be in some trouble and could very well be the people who fire the gunshots in the White Lotus Season 3 finale. 7. Gaitok and Mook. Gaitok could try to be a hero during the impending shootout to impress Mook, which could cost him his life. Mook, on the other hand, may not be as sweet as she looks and could have been intentionally misleading and distracting Gaitok the entire time. One theory suggests that Mook is in cahoots with Valentin's robbery scheme, although their characters have never been seen talking together, maybe for good reason. Another possibility is that Gaitok's inaction cost someone else their life, potentially Mook's, which would be even more tragic for his character than him dying sheepishly. 6. Jacqueline, Kate and Laurie. Friction is certainly at an all-time high after Jacqueline told Laurie off in the penultimate episode of the White Lotus Season 3. While it initially seemed like Kate would be the one ostracized from the friend group due to her political leanings, Laurie became the odd one out after being unable to let go of Jacqueline's one-night stand with Valentin. It will be interesting to see whether Laurie will make amends with her friends and tell them about the stolen jewelry in Alexei's room, or if she will continue to be jealous and vindictive. As the most individualistic of the bunch, Laurie may even approach Valentin to steal from Jacqueline. 5. Timothy and Victoria. Timothy has been slowly walking the plank throughout the White Lotus Season 3, stealing and abusing his wife Victoria's lorazepam prescription and avoiding his impending downfall. Victoria had been equally delusional in her thinking that she could convince Piper not to stay behind in Thailand, which turned out to be the true reason for their trip. Victoria and Piper from the White Lotus Season 3. Related. Why Victoria is so opposed to Piper staying in Thailand after the White Lotus Season 3. Victoria Ratliff is strongly against her daughter Piper staying behind on their family vacation in Thailand in the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 5. Timothy had contemplated suicide and envisioned killing Victoria and Saxon several times. He appeared to actually want to go through with it at the end of the last episode, only to realize the gun he stole from Gaitok had been taken. Victoria may not want to live once Timothy reveals the truth about his money laundering scheme and the fact that he could face prison time. Since Tim and Victoria have been popping pills throughout the season, they might both ingest the pong pong tree seeds in true Romeo and Juliet fashion. 4. Saxon, Piper and Lachlan. I'm fairly convinced that the floating body that Zion sees at the beginning of the White Lotus Season 3 is Saxon. He is the first one who notices the pong pong tree fruit in Episode 1, which could be foreshadowing his death by that manner. Greg also may be plotting to get revenge on Saxon and Lachlan for sleeping with Chloe. There's the possibility that Saxon will drink a lethal smoothie, potentially concocted by his father, or that Greg will hire someone to kill the Ratliff brothers, Lachlan smiling and Piper looking serious in the White Lotus Season 3, 2025, above an image of the show's intro sequence. Related. Why Lachlan wants to stay with Piper in Thailand after the White Lotus Season 3, and why she clearly doesn't want him to. In the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 7, Lachlan and Piper's story develops, raising several questions about their motivations and feelings. As for Piper, I think she will want to stay in Thailand but won't be able to after a member, or two, of her family dies. Lachlan and his dark ST may make him the one to watch in the White Lotus Season 3 finale. It would be surprising if that incident between Lachlan and Saxon weren't brought up again. The two will be forced to reunite in Episode 8, which could ignite that treacherous storm that Victoria kept dreaming of earlier in the series. 3. Chelsea, Rick and Frank. Rick seemed to attain nirvana after confronting Jim and not partaking in the hedonistic exploits along with Frank. Still, I don't think he'll be able to walk away from that situation without some retaliation from Shritala and Jim. If that floating body is not a Ratliff, there's a high probability that it's Rick. This would be devastating to Chelsea, who's easily one of the most likable characters in the White Lotus Season 3. Rick's doing something stupid might have drastic and tragic effects.